And a good afternoon to you. I'm Al Cresta. Apparently nobody got the winning Powerball numbers last night. The jackpot has risen to, I guess, $1.4 billion. The odds of winning about 1 in 292 million. Now, what's going to happen to the lucky winner? Will this be a change for the better? Most people think, of course, that kind of money's got to be able to make your life much better. Well, what's the history on this? Have past winners had their lives changed for the better or for the worse? Let's talk about it with Michael Boone, the owner and founder of M.W. Boone & Associates, LLC. He's got 30 years of experience as a wealth advisor, sought after as a nationally known expert in financial planning, and recognized as one of America's 250 best financial advisors by Worth Magazine, and as a 5-star wealth manager by Seattle Magazine. He's appeared on CNN as counsel to lottery winners, is very active in his church and in nonprofits, both locally and in Central Africa. By the way, you can visit him at mwboone.com. Michael, good to make your acquaintance. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for calling.
Let's ask the question, is it an unalloyed blessing to win the Powerball lottery or any massive win like this?
Boy, that is really a question, because you would think it should be, right?
Right.
I mean, you'd think that, what could possibly be bad about this obvious blessing, but it turns out that for many people, they actually perceive it to be a curse. It's difficult for people to do a lot of research on lottery winners, because most lottery winners don't want to be involved in any sort of a research project. They kind of would rather not have a lot of attention, but the research that is out there shows as much as 40% of the winners actually wish that they had not won at all.
Wow, that's incredible. What happens? What are the problems that arise?
Well, there are countless issues that people don't expect. They're for the most part completely unexpected. What people expect, of course, is to be able to buy what they've always wanted to buy, or be able to do even some nice things charitably. Mm-hmm. But it turns out that their life changes, and here are just some of the simple things that happen. And I'm going to share this not only from the standpoint of a lottery winner, but really any of the situations that we call sudden money, which means maybe a large inheritance, especially if it's a publicly known inheritance, or if a professional athlete's kind of come from not having any money, and then they come into a lot of money, and it's a public thing. What happens is you find out you have a whole bunch of friends that you didn't think that you had. So you become really popular really fast. Mm-hmm. And but you find out that they're very superficial people, superficial relationships. The people that surround you at those times are people who simply want something from you. And so a lot of times what happens is that the normal person goes, boy, it would be great to have a lot of friends, people who wanted to be around me, but they don't realize that if people just want to be around you because they want to take something from you, it's actually a pretty horrible relationship to have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That makes sense.
And as you might guess, what you end up doing is starting to become quite alone, because even the people that do legitimate desire to be with you, your true friends, it's hard to separate them from the not true friends.
So you begin to develop suspicion.
Exactly. You start to become kind of insecure, really, in all of your relationships.
Interesting. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah.
And when you think about the kinds of problems that you see stars having out there every day, the kind of ways that they behave oftentimes in society, and you say, how can that person be that insecure to behave in that way? And that's some of the reasons. They're surrounded by people who are trying to take things from them, and they begin to really not trust anyone and behave not well as a result of that.
I've often thought that were I to come into unexpected big money like this, that right now my expectations are fairly modest. But if all of a sudden I was sitting on $500 million or $1 billion, my expectations would inflate, and it would take more to satisfy me. Is that part of the problem too?
Absolutely. What happens is, and I think this is true, I've learned over the years, it's true for everyone. Many times I asked clients who are 60 or 70 years old that have have been successful financially at a much more modest level, but still they're doing well financially. And I say, if you could have imagined having the money that you have now back when you were 25 years old, would you imagine feeling the way you do now? And everyone says no. In fact, research shows that people don't even start to feel rich on a worldwide basis until they have about 5 million U.S. in the industrialized nations. And yet you would ask the typical person, if you had $1 million, would you feel rich? And they would say, absolutely, I'd feel very, very rich. But our perspective changes as our income goes up.
There was in fact, let me play this little piece for you. You've probably seen it already. Let's pull it out, Dan. The hooker and cocaine piece here.
We're here at the line where people are doing it the old-fashioned way. They're just filling out bubbles here. I want to turn some of these people around and ask you guys, sir, can I ask you what your lucky numbers are?
I'm going to pick 14, 24, 2, 7, and 15.
Those are your lucky numbers. Can I tell you do you know your chances of winning?
Slim to none.
Slim to none, you're right. Let me tell you, it's 1 out of 292 million. What do you think about that?
I knew it.
You knew it. Your numbers are lucky, though, am I right?
So.
Can I ask you, if you won all the money, what would you do with it?
Bunch of hookers and cocaine.
Oh, okay, that's not good. We were hoping for a different answer. That's probably not the answer that we're looking for.
Well, I would hope for a different answer, too.
But, hey, somebody was honest. There you go.
But that's a very crass answer. But the point is, it's no matter how you cut it, this guy wants self-indulgence, right? I mean,
absolutely.
He wants the pleasures of the wine, women, and song, or drug, sex, and rock and roll, however we want to put it. How many people do end up kind of either drinking it down or putting it into their arm or snorting it up their nose or becoming victimized, allowing themselves to be victimized by drugs, alcohol, or other types of addictions?
That you bring up such a great point, because what I've often said before, and I think it was actually Henry Ford who's quoted with it or credited with the quote, but he said, money does not change you, it merely unmasks you.
Yeah.
And so what happens is that I don't think that in many cases it changes these people. I think that these are things that people want. They just can't live that way in their normal life. Or even if they could afford to live that way, they would be afraid of losing their friends, or they would be afraid of losing their job. And suddenly their friends or their job or the other things that might normally restrain them are gone. And so it seems to me that what happens is if people don't have a central core understanding of who they are and what their priorities are and what their values are about what's important to their life, that they are easily blown by the wind, and that this money often in situations will completely destroy them.
Now, do you find that people who have an explicit faith in God do better at stewarding these resources, or does it not make any difference necessarily?
So you mentioned a great word there. You mentioned the word stewarding, because I think that is the perspective that people need to have when they think about this. If you think about a large amount of money for a lot of people, if we just pulled a number out like, say, $10 million, obviously much less than the Powerball this time, but normally people who handle $10 million amounts of money are in a business setting. They're part of a company, and that might be part of a company budget. And they are professional, as an employee, they're a professional steward. An investment advisor is charged with handling large amounts of money.
That's right.
And what happens is that a steward thinks properly about money. That's a biblical perspective on money, is one of stewardship. And most people do not think often that way about their money. And what happens is when you get chunk of money, you need to think that way about it. You need to think that this money is not who I am. This is money that is money I'm supposed to take care of. And so for a lot of people, for me, that biblical understanding is central to that idea of stewardship. Some people, I think, can get stewardship and not be a Christian. There are people who are good stewards and not Christians.
Sure.
But I think But I think that idea of stewardship, that this money is not who I am, but it's money that I'm supposed to be wise about, that I can enjoy, but I also have to be thoughtful about what's the proper way to spend it. Those are the people, I think, that can handle the money and will thrive with it, and for those people it becomes a blessing. And a blessing, incidentally, to everyone around them.
Very good. Michael, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time to be with us today, and hopefully we'll talk again in the future.
You're welcome. I hope this is useful.
Very useful. Michael Boone is the owner and founder of M.W. Boone & Associates. You can visit him at mwboone.com. I'm